Hello, pieces and peoples. Okay, so it's been a while since I've done a long form video that's this long. So let's see how well I can say lines without fumbling the ball. Anywho, so this drawing was originally I wanted to try a drawing that I've done before in a different art style. I've done this drawing I think 5 times, and every time it's always something new. I feel like tracing your own art and changing that art and giving it like some new life. I fumbled the ball already. I feel like tracing your art and trying a different art style is a good way to breathe new life into it. And it's a good way to beat like art block. So time number 5 doing this drawing, it looks completely different than the other few times I've done it, and I even gave it an actual background this time. I also made the character much younger and I gave her shorter hair, mostly because since this is a newer art style, I wasn't quite sure how to do longer hair. If you can see the fact that her long hair is in a different art style than her short hair. So then I tried taking a thick brush so that way I can feel the motion of the hair a bit better. I'm gonna play around with this a bit. I'm gonna delete it. Yeah, in the end, we're not gonna keep the long hair. The long hair was a mistake, and I got tired and lazy, and I didn't want to do it anymore. Also, another thing is sometimes if you have a part of a drawing, and this isn't always the case, sometimes you need to push yourself, but sometimes if you have something in a drawing and you're like dreading doing that part, it's okay to skip it. Sometimes skipping it can be the next step into learning something new and adapting to something new rather than trying to brute force your way into a certain direction. Although sometimes it is important to do those things, like, for instance, when people draw characters that are always hiding their hands, like, sometimes you can learn new things from that. Sometimes it's just that you don't want to learn hands, and you gotta learn how to do hands, unless you're planning on not drawing humans, or you're making art style where everyone has hands that are lopped off. Which, if that's what you want to do, go for it, queen, kings, and everything in betweens. So, no, yeah. So now I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, yeah. I'm just working on the line art for the hair. Gosh, this drawing took forever. I also, words. Oh, someone's speaking in the background. I could hear them. Oof. Anywho, so now I'm going over the skin tone and the hair color, and I'm going to go and try different things with the hair color in a bit. I'm going to change it like 50 different times, and then we're going to go right back to the beginning and start doing brown anyways. I don't know why I changed it so much. I was like, oh, I could try it with like maybe instead of the brown, I could use white hair and then slowly slide to pink. No, we're just gonna keep it brown. And then I also tried a whole bunch of new things with the lighting. Originally, I was gonna go with the lighting that I had in my original picture. The last time I traced it. Oh, by the way, when I say traced it, I do mean tracing my own art, not tracing other people's art. There's another thing where I actually do another tracing later in the painting, and I trace a plant in my backyard. Haha. Which is slightly better than tracing something from Pinterest, because then it's like all the copyright stuff. Also, personally, I know it depends from artist to artist, but personally, I don't have an issue with tracing as long as you're upfront about it. And I think that if you do it mindfully, like while thinking what you're doing, not just zoning out and tracing, I do think that you can learn a lot about drawing. Like, I spent the past few days drawing flowers, which is something I've always struggled with in the past. And tracing up the plant the first time helped me so much when it comes to realizing how a plant is supposed to function shape wise. It's a lot less formulaic than drawing a human. Speaking of which, drawing humans is so formulaic. It's like, I feel like as you like develop yourself as an artist, a lot of it is just noticing and keeping track of what parts of that formula you like or dislike, and then like learning new things when you break away from your formula. But anywho, so then I tried this rainbow hair, which I don't keep, but it is helpful later on. Also, it's kind of cute. Part of me kind of wishes I kept it, but I do think the brown was the right move. So then I turn everything to black and white, and I start going over it with just a regular pen, you know? And like it's like a CeraVe brush. I forgot what it's called. Um, and then I reduce the opacity, and then I'm going to go over with light colors and reduce the opacity. And what I'm trying to do here is create a good gradient of white to black, shadows, and all that whatnot, because I'm going to use a gradient map in a few seconds to change. There we go. I'm going to use gradient maps to change the color. That way I have a. Basically, it hurts my brain to think about all the colors I have to use. I know what I'm supposed to do. Dark colors lean more towards cool, warm colors lean more towards warm, yellowish colors, you know. Light colors warm, dark colors cool, blah, 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 blah. But it's easier for me to just do that in a gradient map and just make a gradient map with my dark colors, my light colors, blah, 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 set, and then draw in black and white, and then change it later on. And then I'm going to keep going back and editing my gradient map. Like a lot. I learned so much in this painting. If I went back, it's only been 2 days, but if I went back now, I bet I could do the hair way better than I did it when I did this drawing. I finished this a while. This drawing took me like 2 weeks, a week to do. It was fun though. It's also because I was doing this during finals. So it was like bit by bit by bit. It wasn't just me sitting down and doing it all in one go like I would have wanted to. So here so the top of the hair I use it's either I used a screen or I used an ad clipping mask, and then the blue on the hair I used an ad clipping mask with blue. So then I set the skin tone to white, and then I used a clipping mask with multiply on it. That was like a deep red color, and then reduced the opacity. So that way it looks like there's a glow underneath her skin, which is something I haven't done before. Where you use a clipping mask with multiply as your actual skin tone, so it looks like the light's hitting it. I don't know. I think it's cool. And I've always loved adding like sparkly white dots to things. Even in my paintings as a kid, I used to like taking the back of a paintbrush, dipping in white paint, and adding little dots everywhere. But for this, I'm just using a brush that's like called Dust or something. So then I decided, oh, I should work on the shirt, and I of course go back to black and white because we're going to use a gradient map. And I don't know how to do this material, so I looked at pictures online, and fun fact, I used a lot of pictures of AI art, not pictures that I made myself, quote unquote made myself on AI art, just stuff I found on Pinterest. Because ethically AI art is kind of janky, a little janky. But no, yeah, I just start adding things. I tried 50 different colors, of course. Only real artists are indecisive. And then I asked a friend, what do you think? And she's like, oh, that's a nice color. And I'm like, I agree. And then I start working on the bow. And originally I was gonna go with the colors from her hair. But then I was talking to a friend again, and she was like, oh. I was like, do you like it with colors or black and white? And she's like, black and white. And I do agree with that. I think making the bow black, it helped tie it all together and give it some more balance. Otherwise, it was getting too saturated. So now we move on to this plant. And you can see me tracing the backyard plant. It's all cute and fluffy. There was a specific branch I saw, and I'm like, I want that branch. So I start working on this. And originally this was just supposed to be practicing plants. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to practice the plant, and I'm going to add the character in front of it. And this is like a completely different... I downloaded the thing as a PNG, I think, and then slapped it on top because it doesn't have a background. I think it was a PNG. I don't remember. I'm not going to go back and check. So then I was trying new things with a bunch of purples and blues. Wasn't entirely sure how I liked the way that looked. It was just some puff balls that were a little bit out of focus. This one I did by hand, trying to use what I learned in the other one, and this is a plant I have in my kitchen right now that is way smaller than it is in this picture. But yeah, I took a picture with my phone, and I wanted to try painting it by hand, and so I did these little swirls for all the petals and stuff. And then I take a clipping mask, and then I add on top of it with orange to give it that bright look. And it was a bright orange. even though it looks more like pastel-y, it brings it more toward, yeah, there we go. I did it again. And then I went over there and then I added multiply onto the other flower with a dark red. And I'm going to do that to both flowers. And then I'm going over to the other side and I wanted to go in by hand. And I'm like zoomed in on my phone on the plant reference. I'm going in by hand to do the brush strokes for the plant. And which is like upper right side, if you can see that. I'm too lazy to edit this to actually zoom in. I don't know how to do that. But no, yeah, so then I start adding the little individual flowers to it. And then I start making the ones farther away darker, which if I remember correctly, I think the ones that are farther away are lighter, but just pretend there's a light source in front of her. And then I'm adding like a little shine to the sky. If I was a smarter person, I would have added a comet, but I'm too lazy. Anywho, I hope you like the finished product. If you made it to this far, please comment waffle cookies in the comment section below. Love you guys. Goodbye.